Hello there. Today I'm looking at a second white wine from the Tuscan region of Bulgaria. So this is from the Gaja family. This is their Karmakanda estate and the wine is called Vistamare, and this is the 2022 vintage of that. Now this estate was purchased by Angelo Gaja back in 1996, and Gaja had built his reputation by producing wines in Barbaresco in Piedmont, where wines such as his Sorì San Lorenzo, Sorì Tildìn and Costa Russi are top single vineyard Barbarescos. The estate, comprising about 100 hectares of vineyards, was purchased as a result of a protracted set of negotiations that involved Angelo visiting the estate no less than 17 times. Hence the translation of Karmakanda, my understanding is that it actually means house of haggling. The estate actually neighbours that of Ornellaia, one of the best known estates in this region. And having purchased it, they then spent 6 years building a state-of-the-art winery on the premises. The name Vistamare is, I think, a slightly ironic reference to estate agents describing properties with a sea view. Evidently it's actually 6 miles inland, so I don't think they can actually see the sea from there. However, the influence of the sea, the cooling breezes, are important because they moderate the temperature and allow the growing of balanced fruit here. The vineyards sit on a strip of land between the sea and the steeper hills of the region, and they describe them as having great luminosity, so good light quality, I suppose you'd say, and also being cooled by the breezes. The other advantage is that they're actually sheltered from the northeast, which is where the harsher winds in this region come from. And today the running of the estate is done by those children. There's Gaja, her sister Rosanna Gaja, and their brother Giovanni. 2022 was quite a warm vintage, and although across the season rainfall was about average at about 600 millimetres, the majority of that fell in 2 bouts. So there were heavy rain between October and December 2021 in the winter, and then more fell in the late summer. However, there was an effective drought between these 2 bouts of rain. Temperatures were uniformly high throughout the season. Evidently temperatures in May reached about 28 degrees C, so summer-like temperatures. June was much closer to average, however July again saw heat spiking. And actually the vines only saw some relief when rain fell around mid-August. And actually what these dry conditions meant that there were virtually no fungal problems or pest problems in this vintage. The rain diluted the high sugar levels and softened the skins of the grapes, so that was beneficial. Fortunately, the Mistral winds managed to dry the vineyards out, and picking for the white grape varieties started as early as the 16th of August. There were storms in September that brought fungal risk to those grapes that were still on the vine. However, the management of the vineyards with grass in between actually meant that grass was revived and took up a lot of the water that had fallen, so that mitigated the effect for the vines. Now the grapes were all hand harvested, carefully sorted and gently pressed. Vinification took place both in stainless steel tanks and in French oak barrels. The different varieties were vinified separately. I understand Vermentino was fermented in stainless steel tanks, and the Viognier portion of the wine was fermented in oak. There's also Fiano in this wine. I don't know which of those vessels that was fermented in. I'd have thought probably stainless steel, but I don't know that for sure. The wine aged for 6 months and was then blended. The final blend is 70% Vermentino with 20% of Viognier and the final 10% being the Fiano. I do hope those are correct percentages. I found them online and they don't seem to quite marry up with the blend for the 2020, which I understood was 40% Vermentino, 40% Viognier and 20% Fiano. But it's not impossible that there might be that kind of variation in the blend between vintages. After blending and bottling, the wine aged in the producer's cellars for a few months just to allow it to marry prior to release. So let's have a look at it, shall we? Seeing a wine here of medium yellow colour but with reasonable intensity. It's not pale. Swirling it, the wine, according to its label, has 13.5% alcohol. It doesn't seem too eager to leave tears on the side of the glass. The wine's falling back without forming them, so it's perhaps not quite so viscous. So let's see what we make of the aromas, shall we? The aromas are restrained, they're quite elegant, there's a real saline note to them. But then there are also floral touches. There's almost a sort of the slightest hint of honey, but there's a sort of a delicate ripe peach note there, sort of fresh white peach, that sort of thing. So let's have a taste. The palate is dry, there's a real saline note, there's a minerality, almost a sort of a chalky undertone. There's some real notes of sort of green, sappy, fresh vegetation. There's a lively acidity, and there are just the slightest hints of gunflint and strut match at the back of the palate, suggesting maybe an indigenous fermentation. I don't know for sure, but there's certainly something that's creating those sort of slightly toasty mineral notes there. There's not an obvious note of new oak, so I would assume that those portions that were fermented and aged in oak were perhaps aged in older oak. The alcohol seems in balance, it's not overpowering the finish. There's a lovely length, that clean mineral acidity is cutting through. It's followed by those sort of sapid, saline notes. The wine is at most light to medium bodied, it's not sort of full or rich. It does have a good intensity, a sort of a lasting presence. And despite its green touches, there isn't any harshness or tartness. Tasting it again, there are hints of sort of almond, marzipan, and there are those tiny touches of honeyed or honeysuckle notes, which I think in some ways actually relate to the sort of the gunflint, gunpowder touches that I was talking about as well. It's a fascinating wine. It's enduring incredibly well for a wine that actually seems to be quite subtle and restrained. I think it has the acidity to pair with some quite rich dishes. I would tend to think that it was a lighter wine to drink during the summer, perhaps as a sort of a lunchtime wine or something like that. But I think in looking at it in that way, I'm perhaps dismissing its quality and downgrading it a little. I don't mean to belittle it. This is an incredibly well-made wine. It has lovely persistence. Looking at our Wine Searcher aggregated critic score, this got 92 out of 100. At first I did wonder whether that was really justified, but in honesty I keep finding more in the wine. Also, it's not particularly cheap. I'll leave a link in the notes below so that you can follow that to the Wine Searcher website and you can see there where it's available and at what price it is. And thus you can make any sort of value decisions yourself if you're interested in buying it. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I do hope you found the video of interest. If you have, it would be great if you'd press the like button below. We'd really appreciate that. If you'd like to leave any comments, please pop those in the box below. We'd be really interested to hear what you think about the wines we're looking at, the tastings we're doing, or anything else that relates to that. If you've got friends you think might like to watch the video and learn more about this wine, do please feel free to pass it on to them. That would be fantastic. Most importantly though, if you can, do please make some time, come and watch another tasting video with us in the very near future. Till then, bye for now.